Hi, everybody. It's Jeff Kirkshin for another episode of Do What You Love, where I interview passionate people about what they're most passionate about. I'm giving you a little bit of a tissue warning, not just for those listening, but also for me and our next guest, because our next guest and I've had her on our morning show here in Las Vegas before, and she is the definition of brave and beautiful in every sense of the word. And I'm so excited to bring in our guest for this episode, Hanna Olivas. Thank you so much for joining Do What You Love. We have a lot to unpack here, but I'm just going to start off by saying you are an inspiration. And if people take this podcast journey with us, they're going to know why I am so empowered by what you do each and every day. Hanna, honestly, let's just start from the very, very beginning. And I want you to tell the story because even though I tell stories for a living, this is not my story to tell. You are currently battling a rare form of blood cancer, and you're not letting this bring you down at all. In fact, you're doing quite the opposite. You're using your diagnosis as an opportunity to inspire other women, other people battling cancer. It's incredible. Tell us a little bit about your cancer journey, where it started to where you are right now.
So, I number one, I'm 46, and I was born and raised in Las Vegas. I was diagnosed in 2017 with a blood cancer called multiple myeloma, and I had never heard of it, didn't have a clue what it was. I just knew I wasn't feeling good, and I had gone to the doctor several times, just trying to figure out what was going on. Prior to the diagnosis, a lot of people don't know this, and this is something that I've just recently shared. My husband and myself, we were expecting a child. I was 8.5 months pregnant, and we lost him. And we think that the cancer was the problem then, but I was not diagnosed. And so when I was going to the doctor trying to figure out what was wrong with me, the doctors kept saying, "Oh, it's just stress. It's, the loss of a child." But something just told me that it was something deeper than that. And we asked another doctor to check me, and I was misdiagnosed for about 8 months. And I kind of had to navigate through the medical system in Las Vegas, which was very difficult because the type of cancer that they told me I have, I really didn't meet that criteria. And we also didn't have specialists for that type of cancer. So during my journey of trying to figure out really what was wrong, and then once we did figure out what was wrong, how are we going to treat this? Not having any options here in Las Vegas, we were immediately outsourced to the Mayo Clinic. And, once we got to the Mayo Clinic and got the full on diagnosis is what this looks like, they gave me a prognosis of 5 years, telling me that this is a terminal disease. There's no cure for it. And any option that I were to take, whether it be, clinical trial, chemo, all these different things, all it is honestly just to buy more time. So it was a lot to choke down at one time. I am a mom. I have 5 kids and 2 grandkids and a husband, and this whole life. And it was a moment of like, whoa, what just happened? And when I was trying to understand my own diagnosis and just really trying to find support groups here in Vegas, if there was anybody else like me who was going through something similar, I was desperate to find answers and just get as much education as I could. I was looking for the cure that didn't exist, so to speak, and the support groups of other women who may be like me. Because one thing that I've always said in my journey is, women deal differently with cancer, period, versus men. We all have different issues. And so I was looking for a support group for me, for a female, and I didn't have a lot of luck. And as I began to really dive deeper, I realized that I was not the only one who was searching for something. And I just at that moment felt like, you know what, I have to do something. I might not be able to control what's happening in terms of diagnosis or end result, but I can control how I live the rest of my life out. And so I wanted to help others. And we opened up the nonprofit called the Brave and Beautiful Foundation, BBBCF, Brave and Beautiful Blood Cancer Foundation. And, you know, a lot of people ask me, well, why Brave and Beautiful? And my answer is this: anyone who faces cancer, they're brave, they're a warrior. The beautiful comes because I had to find the beauty in my own journey of cancer. There were times when I was just, you know, downtrodden, just so sad because I am young, I am a mom, I am a grandma, I am a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, and I have this amazing support system, and I want more time with them, and I want more time to do my live it list and to travel and to do all these things. And so I had to find the beauty. And so when I was going through my first rounds of chemo, I would always tell myself, I'd walk in the chemo room and it's very intimidating, number one, because you're surrounded with sick people. And I would always try to find somebody who was smiling no matter what, or that oncology nurse who gives you that extra, hey, it's going to be okay, I know it's your first time. And I just started to look for the beauty in certain things, you know, even down to like, I'm so glad we have 7-Up in the oncology room for the queasiness that comes, or you know, like it became this thing where I kept looking for the beauty in it and trying to be this brave soul, and it became a lifestyle for me and a habit. And so I said, you know what, we have to do something to help others like us. And so I did open up the nonprofit. We started doing toy drives for pediatric kids who are facing blood cancer. This year, it'll be our 3rd year. We've done amazing with it. We have amazing programs for the patient and their families, because it's not just the patient who has the cancer, the family does too. And a lot of people forget that when someone's diagnosed, the whole family, you know, they're all going through that same thing. It's not just me. And so
yeah, I think that's a very good point to bring up, because I think a lot of people in the same right of people who are serving in the military and serving overseas don't realize that it may be mom or dad that's doing the actual serving. However, the whole family is serving. So the whole family is impacted by this cancer diagnosis, and the Brave and Beautiful Blood Cancer Foundation, I think, is such a great way to reach families, not just the patient, but the whole family.
Definitely. And I noticed, like, the more involved I got with the nonprofit, the more families that I was able to meet, the more families that we got involved with that we were able to help. It really took the focus off of my own illness. And there's days where I just forget I'm even sick. You know, like I'll be sitting getting my treatment, and I've got my computer, I've got my notebook, and I'm working and I'm trying to figure out how to help this person or that person. And it's really taught me that the world is beautiful. The journey, even though it's might not be what I signed up for, there's still beauty in it, and I'm still here. I'm still living. I'm not, you know, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving in. You know, I am human. I have my days, but at the end of the day, I just refuse to lay down and just let it take me like they say it will, you know. And I've had some obstacles most recently, like I was telling you, you know, with my kidneys, all the chemo and everything, it attacks your organs, and things are not working as much as they should be. But you know, I hang on to my faith. I cling to my support system, and we just try to push through and do the best that we can with what we're dealing with.
The amount of questions I have for you, unbelievable, because of how strong and how beautiful and how empowering you are to so many people. So you've got the Brave and Beautiful Blood Cancer Foundation, which you have spent so much energy after your diagnosis, which, by the way, I can't speak from experience, but speaking with you and other family and friends that have had cancer and gone through chemo, energy is not something that comes very easily to those in treatment, yet you have found a new wind of energy. Do you feel like, I don't want to say it like this, but do you feel like this inspiration to help others who are going through the same thing has prolonged and kept you healthy longer, prolonged your life?
Oh, absolutely. I think if I would have listened to the actual prognosis, like if it would have actually clicked and registered and stayed, I think I would have just kind of threw my hands up in the air and said, okay, it is what it is. I think me being out in the field, working during even the pandemic, and working with these families and seeing that I'm not alone, that I'm not the only person that's dealing with this, that there's thousands upon thousands of people that are worse than me, that have it harder than me. It inspires me to continue to want to stay strong and get up. And even the days I don't want to brush my hair, the days I just feel like I just want to spend all my time with my head in a bucket, because those days do come. I have to tell myself and remind myself sometimes, like, hey, you know what, you're still not as bad as some other families that we're helping. And the biggest thing, one of the things that motivates me the most is the kids, because we deal with kids who have leukemia, lymphoma, and they're little mighty warriors. And if they can do it, then I just need to shut up, buttercup, and keep on going, because these little boys and girls are fighting for their life just like I am, and they're going through this crazy time in their life and they don't even understand it, and they're still smiling. So I feel like I have no excuse but to just, continue.
Yeah, you're the big kid here. You're the big kid here. So you have to be able to I guess suck it up if kids are, but that, how many cancer people who are battling cancer can't find it within themselves to have that attitude. And for somebody you might meet who is looking for these support groups just like you were back in 2017, saying, I'm reaching, I'm trying to find somebody who can relate to me, who understands me, who gets it. When you meet that person, when you meet that woman even, who says, I have this many years to live and I am giving up, I am weak, I am sad, and I am going to die. What do you say to a woman who is truly -3 out of 10 on the attitude scale?
I always say that we're dying to live, not living to die. Like, you have to, we can't change, we as humans we want to control everything. We want to control every outcome, every scenario. And in a cancer diagnosis, that is just not an option. And so once we get past the realization that, hey, we don't know what that future holds, but what we can control is how we live here and now. And so,
Wow.
when this first came up, I wrote this crazy long bucket list. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do everything. I want to do this with my kids. I want to do this with my husband. I had some crazy stuff on this bucket list. And I was actually able to do a lot of things on my list. And then one day I was sitting there and I'm like, God, bucket list sounds so awful. Like, no, this is going to be my live it list. I'm switching the vocabulary, because bucket, like, I'm going to kick the bucket, and what you speak out sometimes comes into existence, and I didn't want to push myself there any faster than I want to be. So I revised my bucket list to my live it list. I did a lot of soul searching, mindset. I started to really focus on, try just to read and empower myself through other women, and just learn as much as I could from living a lifestyle of gratitude, from not letting my bad days throw me back to where I just don't want to do anything anymore. Like, everybody has a bad day. Okay, I had a bad day. Tomorrow's going to be a better day. And if tomorrow's not going to be a better day, then the next day is going to be a better day. So I just had to really start teaching myself, and I had to listen to myself and really do some self-check to say, okay, well, you have cancer, but what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do today? What are you going to do tomorrow? And how can I help others who are feeling like me? And that was really, when I opened the nonprofit, I really wanted it to be more of just a support group. But then I realized the financial responsibility that we have as patients and families. And these patients were asking hey, we need help with our rent. We need help to travel to get to specialty facility, because like I said, in Vegas, we don't have a lot of options here. And so it became even deeper. I just saw this need just growing and growing and growing. And pretty soon I forgot about my own problems and just started, trying to help others. And so when those people come across my my timeline or in my email, or they call me, I tell them the very first thing they have to do is they have to let go. They have to realize, okay, yes, you have cancer. Cancer is what you have. It's not who you are. And you take control.
Wow.
Learn how to advocate for yourself. If your doctor won't listen to you, then that's not the doctor for you. If your doctor doesn't want to fight with you and for you, well, then that doctor shouldn't be your doctor. And I call those Dr. Dodos. I think you and I talked about that. I've had to fire a couple of Dr. Dodos, because when I go into the doctor and they say, hey, Miss Olivas, how are you feeling today? And I say, well, I feel this, this, and this. And they say, well, on paper, your numbers look good. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. But that's not how I feel. So let's dig deeper and find out, why am I feeling that way? So I've had to learn to advocate for myself. And during that, I was able to help others advocate for themselves and teach them to speak the language. Like right now we can't do it, but I always tell patients, don't go alone to the doctor. Make sure you have somebody with you, because you're in this state of mind where all you keep hearing is cancer, death, medicine, chemo, and you block out certain things. You go into this panic mode. And so you need a person of support who can take notes and listen and hear the things that you may miss. Unfortunately, with COVID happening, that's not really an option. But I also encourage people to get into support groups. Like, we have a ton of support groups, and we have them for men and women. You need mental and emotional help. Dealing with a terminal illness is very hard. It's draining, because there's days where I'm afraid to say, oh, well, next year, I want to go to Hawaii or whatever. Like, I get that little fear inside me that says, oh, well, maybe you won't be here next year. And then I have to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to be here 20 more years. I don't know, but I'm not going to allow that to limit me as to what I can or can't do. Just recently, for the first time ever, ice skated. My doctors told me, you can't roller skate, you can't ice skate, you can't do sports, because my bones are so brittle from what's going on. I fractured my ribs 3 times in the last 12 months for no reason, sneezing, coughing, just simple things. And so we took my 9-year-old little girl ice skating, and I was like, you know what? I'm getting out there with you, Peanut. I don't care what anybody says. And I did it. And, was it hard? Yeah, it was hard. But, I can't limit myself. I can't watch other people limit themselves. So I always have to tell them, like, no, you got to fight this. You got to kick booty. And, if my message helps one person throughout this whole thing, then I've done my part. That's how I see it.
That is so beautiful. Oh my gosh. I absolutely love that. Hanna Olivas is on with us. She is a warrior, a cancer warrior, and she founded the Brave and Beautiful Blood Cancer Foundation, but that doesn't end her inspiration, especially for other women. Obviously, we are on a podcast now. Do what you love. Thank you, everybody, for listening, but you're not exactly a stranger to podcasting. No, you're not. She Rises podcast has just been launched through the She Rises studio, and I am a podcast nerd. I'm a radio guy. I love this. I want to hear all about this podcast. Who are your co-hosts? Who do you bring in? What kind of stories are you telling? And I heard you just made a top 100 list for podcasts as well. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so in the midst of launching a nonprofit and, doing this journey, I started sharing my story nationally and even internationally. And I was meeting women all over, and these women were reaching out, asking me, how do you do this? And how do you do that? And, so I co-founded She Rises with my daughter, my oldest daughter, Adriana. And we wanted to bring together a movement of women empowerment and meet women where they are in their everyday life, whether they're an entrepreneur, whether they're facing a chronic illness, if they are just wanting to be a better stay-at-home mom, or whatever their journey is, wherever they're at. We wanted to be a part of that. We want to educate and celebrate women globally. We're very, very much involved with domestic violence in terms of teaching women not to accept it and to recognize the signs. We're a part of the Me Too movement. Like when I say women empowerment, we're constantly building women up and telling them to embrace who they are, where they are, love themselves, empower themselves, and also to empower other women. Like, we all have gifts, we all have talents, we all have these amazing things within us, and those are not meant to be kept secret and inside. Those are meant to be shared and given, and like you're paying it forward. So we did launch She Rises podcast. We talk about mindset, we talk about all kinds of different topics, from clarity to clutter, how to become an entrepreneur, because there are a lot of women, when the pandemic hit, people had to get very creative in taking care of themselves. And let me tell you what, we are a force to be reckoned with. Women are out there opening businesses left and right and becoming powerhouses. And that is amazing. And we get to be a part of that with them. So the podcast, we bring in experts depending on what topic we're on, like stepping into your power. What does that look like? What's your passion? What's your purpose? Who's your niche? Who do you want to help? And we start, I had some books come out this year too. And during this whole thing, we've just watched She Rises grow, and we've watched the nonprofit grow almost hand in hand. It's crazy how much of a need there is for it. We have our own TV show, and it's just all about women, and meeting them where they are and giving them the love and the adoration and the respect that they deserve, and that they can teach to their kids, grandkids, nieces. Nothing personal towards men, but
and it's not taken personally.
And I wholeheartedly believe that. And it makes me so happy to see so many women come into their own and, really just grow. They flourish, they thrive, and they arrive. And Adriana and I have gotten to see this for the past year, and it's been so exciting. We've met some incredible women across the globe, and it's awesome. And it keeps me pumped up. It keeps me going. I listen to my own podcast when I'm in the treatment room. I'll play it for the nurses, and they're like, "Oh my God," So it's a good thing, and they kind of balance off each other. When I'm having that hard day, I listen to myself talk. Who would have thought? But it's amazing.
Don't worry, I know that feeling. I've done that before. I've listened to my own radio show if I'm down, if I want to get better at what I do, if I want to learn more, and I actually just subscribed. I want you to know that I subscribed to your podcast on Apple Podcasts, She Rises Studio Podcast. I'll actually link it in the show notes for today's interview. So if you want to subscribe, and I think there's something very important there, Hanna, is your ability to take your diagnosis, go to women and talk to them about your diagnosis and similar situations like yours. And then now you're broadening out to a situation where you're not just talking about cancer. You're not just talking about diagnosis. You're talking about entrepreneurship, starting a nonprofit, starting a podcast, writing a book. Becoming an Unstoppable Woman is your newest book. And listen, how do you have enough hours in the day? I mean, it's
funny. I ever since I started chemo, I don't sleep. Like, it's this thing, like, I'll sleep for a few hours and then I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to write this down. And my husband will tell you, he wakes up, he rolls over and he's like, great, you're on your phone. And I'm like, I'm making notes because I don't want to forget, like I'm dreaming it, or I'm like, my mind is constantly, going. And during this journey, I could tell you where I was 10 years ago versus where I'm at now. I mean, I was in the beauty industry. I never thought I was going to be um, a cancer patient or an author or traveling, speaking, and sharing my experience with women and men. I always thought I was going to retire as a makeup artist. And so as I started writing and like journaling, because I did it for therapeutic reasons, somebody was like, wow, you really should write this in a book. And I was like, really, you think? So I tried it out, and it worked, and it helped me. It helps me grow, and it helps me learn, and it keeps me strong and energetic. And I drink a lot of vitamins. Like, you know,
That's the secret right there. That's the secret right there.
vitamins, and you got to eat your greens. Just a lot of it, honestly, it's up here. Where our mind goes, our body follows. So if we keep our mind right, it's kind of like you're keeping that. Okay, yes, I have it, but it doesn't have to be this way. Like I had COVID. I survived COVID. And during chemo, it was, my husband got it. He brought it home for Christmas, and he gave it to the entire family. It's not the Christmas gift we all wanted, but it was tough. We were scared. I was very fortunate to be able to care for, self-care at home. And I've had a lot of blessings, and I have to look at those and say, like, wow, look what I have survived so far. Look what I've been able to go through, and I'm still here to talk about it. And so I'm just super, super grateful for everything, even though the diagnosis is hard. And no, obviously I wouldn't want to be. I don't want this, but I'm accepting of it, and I just embrace the beauty of it all and try to be strong,
Well, you are truly brave and beautiful. I mean, for every definition of both of those words, Hanna Olivas is on Do What You Love, and this is a rare case where you are doing what you love through circumstances you never thought. I mean, your love was beauty, your love was makeup, you were an artist, and now here you are doing what you love given circumstances that are beyond your control. But I think that you have spoken so much to the strength of the mind. My grandmother moved in with me and my family when I was 16 years old, right after my sister went to college. So I lost my sister, a housemate, and then I gained my 86-year-old grandmother at the time. And she was dementia, Alzheimer's, fading slowly but surely. And what we noticed was a friendly face, a smile, and I love you, a kiss, a hug would go miles for her. And I don't want to discredit anybody who has to resort to putting somebody in a nursing home, but if you have the opportunity, they recognize faces. They know what a smile means. They know what a hug means. And, to know that she only passed away last year and lived in my parents' house for 11 years, I don't think she would have lasted more than 2 in a situation where she wasn't with family. And I think that speaks to the mind. Even though hers was deteriorating, it didn't matter because she had such a beautiful support system and a family. Hanna, I can't thank you enough for joining today's show. I've been very much anticipating having you on. You were one of the first guests I know I wanted on when I decided to launch this podcast because you inspired me and you inspire so many other people. Sorry, I get emotional sometimes because you are a friend of mine. I look at you and your husband as friends of mine, and you can sit back and you can be sad about these conversations and you can be sad about a diagnosis, or you can be Hanna about them. And what that means is be brave, beautiful, be strong, and take advantage of a situation that would knock most people down. And instead of you getting knocked down, you're helping other people get up. And that is,
well, thank you.
That is huge.
Thank you so much. It's not easy, and it's not an overnight thing. And I want people to understand, like, the journey is tough. It's real. It's tough. And, you know, I want to be really honest and letting people know that I do have those days where I'm extremely sad, and they do come, and it happens when, you know, like I look at my little grandbabies. I have a 4-year-old grandson and a 2-year-old grandson, and I look at them, and you know, they're so full of life and energy, and they're my world. Anybody that knows me knows that those boys are my everything. And nobody can you they do no wrong. They're grandma's perfect angels. And there's times when I look at them and, you know, I say, God, I hope I'm here. I want to see them graduate high school. I want to see my grandkids walk down the aisle. Like, there's these things that, and it makes me sad because I really don't know, and I have to really like dig deep to say, okay, don't think like that, don't think like that. And um, you know, there was a time not too long ago that I went through a deep depression, and I finally had to say, okay, I need help. And so for people that are going through a diagnosis, whether it's cancer or whatever that looks like, you got to recognize the signs of when you need to reach out and ask for help. And yes, I am strong, but even I needed help. And I had to go outside of my immediate support group, my immediate family, and be honest with myself and my doctor and say, you know what? Um, I need some help here. Can you help me? I need to talk to somebody. I don't want people to think like this journey is just easy and, you know, go have a cup of chamomile tea and you're going to feel better, because that's not reality. And when I've shared this with men and women, they're like, "Oh my God, thank you." Like, they don't have to have that wall up anymore. We don't have to pretend. You know, there people say, "Hey Hannah, how are you?" And I would always say, "I'm fine," when really I'm like, "Oh my gosh, my bones hurt. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Like, I can't, like, there's just all these things." But I would always say, "I'm fine." And now when somebody says, "Hey Hannah, how are you?" I'm going to tell you how I am. I'm going to be honest with you, because I don't want people to think like, oh, if I just read this book, I'm going to be better, because it's not. It really is a mindset. And you know, we have to face the reality. And the reality is that I don't control the diagnosis, but I can control how I spend my time here on earth. And that's kind of where it is for me.
Wow. Just wow. I mean, there it is. Hanna Olivas. She is a nonprofit starter, a podcaster, an author, a mother, a grandmother, and a friend of mine as well. And Hanna, thank you so much for joining. Do what you love. You are the definition of what this podcast is all about. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.